This is the Bentley Flying Spur. It cost £170,000. It'll do 207 miles an hour flat out. It's basically a supercar for your granddad. Bentley say it's the ultimate embodiment of luxury, refinement, and performance. I think Rolls-Royce might have something to say about that, but we're going to give Bentley the opportunity to prove itself in those three areas and discover whether this Flying Spur really is the best high-performance luxury cruiser big money can buy. It all just looks really expensive, doesn't it? I dread to think what it will all cost to insure, but don't forget you can grab a quote for insurance or monthly payments for this thing on autotrader.co.uk. Every hyper luxury car has got to look the part, and I've got to say the Flying Spur has got some serious presence. First of all, it's massive. It's 5.3 meters long, 2.2 meters wide, which makes it bigger than a Range Rover. The best bit is definitely the front. Check this out. The headlights are especially amazing. There's just so much kind of encrusted jewelry going on here. It almost looks like it crashed into the chandelier section of a John Lewis department store. Then you got the grille, enormous, loads of chrome. There's actually a black line specification which allows you to black all this out for a more stealth look. This is plastic, unfortunately, or fortunately, because I dread to think the damage you could do if you were to hit someone with all of that metal. And then there's the pièce de résistance, the bonnet emblem. Now on Rolls Royces you have the Spirit of Ecstasy, but on Bentleys typically what you get is just a simple badge. But they've actually redesigned their bonnet emblem for their centenary. 100 years in the game and you have a brand new Flying B, which can be deployed using a tablet that lives in the car. Check this out, it connects via Wi-Fi and it brings up the brand new Flying B. How cool is that? Now, on Rolls Royces, the Spirit of Ecstasy was actually quite desirable and people tried to nick them a lot. Let's see what happens when you try and steal this. Yes, how cool is that? The back of the car is less impressive, but I really like the B-shaped lights. These muscular haunches with a very distinctive crease are also a nice touch, as are these enormous 22-inch wheels and the B-shaped vents at the side. If Bentley was trying to make a car with enormous presence, they've absolutely nailed it. Obviously, you're not going to be spending that much time staring at the outside. It's the inside that's really going to dictate how luxurious the Flying Spur is. And it is lovely in here. First of all, these seats are glorious. They recline actually, and they have a pair of built-in pillows that are actually more comfortable than the pillows in my bed. That's truly lovely. There's also a middle seat with its own headrest, although I've never actually worked out how to make that stay up, so you're probably never going to use that seat, to be honest. What you are going to use is this, look at this, an armrest. But it's not just any ordinary armrest. Oh no, it has space for 2 cup holders, of course, some storage, a couple of USB ports and a 12-volt socket. But behind the armrest is a fridge. Of course, there's a fridge with enough room for a couple of bottles of the finest Co-op Cava, plus mixers. On top of that, you also get this amazing detachable tablet, which I showed you early on. Now, what it does is it allows you to deploy the bonnet emblem, but also to control various features, including your media playback, the amazing sound system, by the way, from Name, which actually comes with a pair of wireless headphones, so not all passengers can listen to the same music at the same time if they don't want to. Plus, it also has control of the massage feature. You have 5 different programs and 5 different intensity levels, so you always arrive at your destination feeling refreshed. Plus, you have blinds on both sides, a mirror which folds down so you can do your makeup, but that's old school, you don't need to do that. You have a pair of detachable tablets which have a mirror app. So you basically tap the Bentley Mirror app and see yourself in real time on the screen, reminding yourself just how successful and rich you are and how poor everyone else is. And then there's the front, the centerpiece for which is this incredible 3-way rotating screen, which shows your navigation and main menu on one panel, and on a separate panel shows you outside air temperature, a compass and stopwatch, or a third completely blank panel for when you want to keep things simple. There are lots of nice touches, but also a few that, in my opinion, are less nice. The door cards have a unique 3D quilting effect, a world first. They look good, but feel a tiny bit cheap. The carpets are nowhere near as luxurious as they could be, the vent controls aren't as silky smooth as I'd like, and there are some touches that, to my eyes anyway, are borderline tacky. Why, for example, would you need the first edition motif written on every single seat back and every single door sill, backed up by various first edition Union Jack flags? It's overkill, though thankfully, it's all optional. Having said all of that, the Flying Spur is nice. We can put a very big tick in the luxury box. But what about Bentley's second claim, that the Flying Spur offers the ultimate in refinement? Well, let's define refinement, shall we? When we talk about refinement, generally what we mean in cars is quietness, comfort, and ride quality. And in terms of quietness, this thing is exceptional. They've thrown so much sound deadening material into this car that you can barely hear a thing. I'd say there's a real risk of falling asleep. Now, in terms of comfort, again, brilliant. These seats are amazing. You can drive for hours, miles on end, and end up feeling more refreshed at your destination than you felt when you jumped into the car for the first time. The one thing that could be improved maybe are the headrests. They're not too bad, but they don't have the amazing pillows that you get in the back seats. In terms of ride quality, again, the car's exceptional. It's got really interesting suspension. It rides on air springs, which means that it does a fantastic job of eliminating most imperfections in the road. There are 4 different driving modes: Comfort, Sport, B for Bentley, which offers a nice blend between those two, and Custom, which lets you choose your own settings. Now in Comfort mode, on an open flowing B road like this, it rides phenomenally well. It kind of feels like a yacht floating around on the ocean. However, around town, it's probably a little bit too softly sprung. There's been a few times going over speed bumps that I've heard the nose crash down on the tarmac just because the springs are a little bit too soft. Sport is arguably a little bit too firm for everyday use, maybe a bit unbecoming of a Bentley. So you tend to find yourself leaving it in the B for Bentley mode, which offers you a nice Goldilocks compromise. Whichever mode you find yourself in though, the Flying Spur doesn't cope all that well with potholes. There's a lot of unsprung mass to this car. It's got massive brakes, massive wheels, and the suspension just can't quite cope with it. What it means is that when you go over potholes, you end up feeling quite a lot of juddering through the car. It's good, but it's not quite Rolls-Royce good. Whichever mode you're in, the Bentley usually delivers an impressive ride that strikes a great balance between comfort and sportiness. And a big part of that is Bentley's fancy 48-volt active anti-roll technology. Okay, most people don't know what active 48-volt anti-roll technology is, so I'm going to show you. These, as you might have guessed, are eggs. A lot of eggs. And this is the Bentley Flying Spur's very attractive bonnet. Stay with me on this. What I'm going to do is place the eggs on the bonnet and go for a drive. If I'm wrong about this car's level of comfort and refinement, then the Flying Spur is about to become the world's most expensive omelette maker. Look at this. I mean, it was never in any doubt really, but I'm doing, what, 37 miles an hour right now. Eggs are completely fine. Oh, there's a car coming. Don't worry, the eggs are safe. Right, gotta be careful as you approach a junction. If you brake too hard, that's when you get egg on your face. Let's see how fast we can go. National speed limit, 60 miles an hour. Oh, oh. I can see one of them popping up ever so slightly. I think though, that's not the car. That's just the aerodynamic effect of the air sucking the egg upwards. But the suspension is doing its job. The anti-roll system is absolutely flawless. Look at this, we're just riding over the undulations. There's no drama, there's no fuss. Easy. Oh, yep, we've lost one out of 30. Big deal. We'll have a smaller omelette. Cyclist, hit a brake, hit the brake, hit the brake. He's probably wondering what on earth is going on. Now, I could go into a very deep and meaningful explanation on how all this works, but here's what you need to know. The Flying Spur has an electric motor on each axle that can twist the anti-roll bars back and forth. The end result is that during cornering, the car stays flat enough to stop even this lot from flying around. So that's the egg test, passed with flying colours. The other test the Flying Spur has to pass to prove that it can compete with the very best is the Rolls-Royce test. Now, you might have seen this before, and it basically involves balancing a pound coin on the engine. In theory, I should be able to balance that without it moving. Look at that, it's doing it. Right, now in theory, I should be able to rev this without that coin falling off at all. Well, that didn't work at all. There's actually a very good reason why the Flying Spur failed the Rolls-Royce test. It's because it's not a Rolls-Royce. And while the engine in this is Bentley smooth, it's also tuned to be Bentley powerful. Sport mode, launch control, foot on the brake, mash the accelerator, watch it bounce off the limiter, and we are away. Oh my God, that feels like falling off a cliff. This car uses a 6-litre W12 engine, which is basically like gluing two V6s together to make massive power. 635 metric horsepower and 900 Newton meters of torque. That's more than most supercars. Bentley say this thing will do 0 to 62 in 3.8 seconds. 3.8, can you believe that? Now we've actually done our own independent test of this to verify whether that's true, which we're going to put in a separate video. When that's live, you can click up here to watch how that goes down. But I don't think I'm giving away too much when I tell you that this thing is staggeringly, jaw-droppingly, physics-defyingly quick. And I'm not just talking about 0 to 60 either. If you find a long enough, straight enough, legal enough stretch of road, this will keep on going until it hits 207 miles an hour. It's such an impressive thing. The sound especially. Most of the time the car's completely quiet, but when you're pushing on, you can hear that W12 come to life and it purrs. It really is a sweet sounding engine. Not too raucous, not too loud, but it does sound sweet. Now you might think that because this is such a big old barge that it might use an old school torque converter. Not a bit of it. The Flying Spur actually uses an 8-speed dual clutch transmission. There's a couple of paddles behind the steering wheel and it lets the car shift so quickly, and it gives you exactly the gear you want when you want it. It does actually feel like a bit of a driver's car, this thing. The brakes are surprisingly good, but let's face it, they're not going to defy the laws of physics too much. So you have to look a long way in front of you to make sure that there's not an emergency stop situation coming up. But woohoo! If you do find yourself in a bit of trouble and you do have to scrub off some speed, yeah, they work really well. The general agility of this car is staggering as well. The 48-volt active roll stabilization works so well that when you go barreling into a corner, the whole thing just stays completely flat, and it works like magic. If anything, it arguably works a little bit too well. Some people have actually reported feeling a little bit of seasickness in cars with this system. And sometimes, just sometimes, I get the same kind of feeling. And I think that's caused by the disconnect between reality and expectation. You expect the car to roll around, but the reality is it doesn't. What's really impressive is the fact that the car seems to shrink around you. It's absolutely massive, but when you're pushing on, it doesn't feel anywhere near as big as it should. And part of that is down to the fact that it uses rear wheel steering, which can turn in the opposite direction to the front wheels at low speed for better maneuverability, or in the same direction at high speeds for better stability. It might be a big, hulking luxury beast, but it handles incredibly well. On the whole, I think they've done a phenomenal job with the Flying Spur. At the start of this film, I set out to try and find out whether or not this could compete with Rolls-Royces. But ultimately, I think that comparison's probably unfair. Rolls-Royces are built for comfort. They're built to waft. Nothing wafts like a Rolls-Royce, this thing included. However, what the Flying Spur does is deliver a duality of character that not too many cars can match. If you like being driven just as much as you like taking the bull by the horns and driving yourself, then ultimately, there aren't many cars that do a better job.